What is up, guys? It's Intellitech Studios here, and today we're going to be doing a super quick review of the Samsung Galaxy Note 4. Now, this device is pretty much the favorite device among many Samsung historians, and for good reason. Basically, with the Note 4, there is a reason why so many people love this phone. Basically, what Samsung did is they basically took the premium design of newer Galaxy phones like the Note 7 with the expandability and durability of older devices like the Note 2, and basically took the best of both those devices and crammed it into a single device and released it as the Note 4. Now, is it perfect? No, but it has plenty of great things. And in 2018 going into 2019, here's why that you should still consider the Note 4, or in some cases why you shouldn't consider the Note 4. Anyway, guys, let's get into this. So this is another unscripted review, just like the Note Edge, for a more fully productive, or not productive, but more cinematic review. That will be the Note 3 review that is coming very soon, as well as the review of the Galaxy Note 2. I would review this sooner, but unfortunately mine has problems with the Wi-Fi, so I will need to figure out how to get that fixed. So, in the meantime, Note 4. So, basically, Samsung took the best design of their Galaxy Alpha, which was basically a metallized version of the Galaxy S5, and they took that and they added the Note expandability features, added the S Pen, the leather back, and other things that Samsung phones are famous for. We have the metal band, 7000 series aluminum, at least I think it's 7000 series, I'm pretty sure. Either way, it's a fairly sturdy aluminum. It's not the sturdiest, it's not as sturdy as the aluminum on newer Galaxy phones, and that's just because of the fact that it's notched on many of the corners to make room for the antenna bands. Those are often points where after a drop, sometimes the band will kind of deteriorate. However, it's still a very sturdy phone, just not as sturdy as the Note 3, but the thing about the Note 4 is that this is pretty much the last Note where you really want to use it without a case, because it just feels really nice to hold. And it's one of those phones where you can still confidently use it without a case. And yes, I know the screen protector is covered in scratches. That's what I get for buying a plastic screen protector instead of a glass one. Moving on. This leather on the back, which I know it's plastic, but it actually feels really nice. And of course, you have the camera lens, which is protruding, which isn't good because, of course, again, drop, you could potentially break that camera. But the actual design of the back cover is nice. You're not going to have to worry about it shattering, cracking, splitting, anything like that. It's just a very nice design. It's very grippy. You can hold on to the phone very well, unlike newer devices and even older devices. Because this between when you compare these three phones, this one is really slippery. I mean, you can hold on to it, sure, especially when it's colder outside, but it's just not. You know, it's slippery and it feels kind of greasy after a while because of the hyperglaze finish. And with this phone, it's, you know, this one is by far the more holdable when you compare it to the Note 2. But it's still slippery. It's still one where you can still drop it. The sides are fairly thin aluminum. And of course, with the glass on both the back and the front, you have to worry about it cracking if you drop it. You have to worry about it getting scratched. You know, as you can see, this unit has some scratches on it. The aluminum is perfectly fine, but both sides have some scratches. So the Note 4 fixes these issues. Now, the one thing you will have to worry about is the paint chipping off on the borders, so be careful about that, especially in 2018, 2019. You're buying one of these used. Make sure you get one that's in good condition. Like I did, I got mine in good condition. The chamfers are going to scratch up a little bit on the metal, but, you know, it's still a very well-built phone, and it's still a fairly durable phone, so you shouldn't have any problems with that. Of course, cases are always a good option, but this is pretty much the last phone where you can get away without using a case, at least in Samsung's lineup, unless you count their more budget options. And in all honesty, I've seen a lot of people with the J3s, the J5s, the J7s, and they all have cracked screens, so be careful. But at the same time, this one, you don't have to worry as much as with the newer devices. So that's basically as far as the build. You also have the S Pen, which is fantastic. You have all of the stylus options, and you know, you basically have a lot of really cool features. Now, since Marshmallow, this actually got a very similar stylus design to the Note 5, which is very nice. So you have a lot of those options. Let me pull down the screen brightness a little bit so you can see this a bit better. So, as you can see, you got a lot of the pen options with the Air Command menu. You have the floating icon, which is very nice. And you have a lot of the S Pen features that you're used to seeing on the Note 5. So of course you have your action memo, so that way you can pull up a quick note. And of course you have the shortcut, press the button, double tap, and then boom, you get a note. So that way you can draw a note on your note. Fantastic. Now, yes, all these features are great, but let's be honest, you know, the biggest thing is how does this perform? Because a lot of people are worried, obviously, about these older Samsung devices lagging. And I will say, this does seem to have about the same amount of lag as the Note 3, which is very minimal, not enough to personally make me upset. But I will say that I think the Note 3 actually lagged a little bit less than this did, because the Marshmallow update actually did add plenty of features to the point where it did slow it down just a little bit. But keep in mind, I have the Snapdragon 805 variant. I don't have the Exynos variant, and if you have the Exynos variant, it'll get you a better experience. So in many cases, if you can get the Exynos version, get the Exynos version. So, but the performance is still very good, and you still have all of the Samsung TouchWiz features. And yes, like, TouchWiz is all bloated and everything. I use a separate launcher. I use the Microsoft launcher. It's a nice launcher, just to get rid of TouchWiz Home, because the regular TouchWiz only allows 4 rows of icons. I don't like that, so I personally changed that. You also have the fingerprint sensor, which actually works a lot better than it did for me on the Note Edge. On the Note Edge, it had a lot of problems. On here, it's very, you know, it's very rare that it doesn't work. As long as you're basically swiping in a single direction, and if you're doing it fairly fast, because initially I was doing it like way too slow and it wasn't actually registering, but if you do it like fast, like basically, you know, if I'm holding the phone in one hand, I have to do something, I can just swipe and it just opens just fine. You know, there's no problems. It's not as nice as with other devices where you just press your finger on the front and just hold it and then it will open. So that is kind of annoying, how you have to swipe instead of actually just regularly opening it. But at the same time, it works, and it works just fine. Interesting note, if you are going to root this thing and drop a custom ROM on it, the fingerprint sensor is very finicky with third-party ROMs. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then just ignore that part. Because with the stock ROM, it works fine. With what the phone comes with, it's fine. Next, so since we just had access to the camera, let's open up the camera. Camera's very nice. Holds up well. Oh, it's in selfie mode. But yeah. The camera, yeah, obviously it's not as good as the Note 5, but it's very close. I mean, it's within a generation. You have 16 megapixels. You have, you know, plenty of autofocus options. The Note 4 is the first Note to have optical image stabilization, which is fantastic. You also have 4K video, and it's actually fairly good quality 4K video. So the camera actually is pretty good on this. Now, I do think that stepping up to the S6 or the Note 5 actually will get you a better camera experience. At the same time, then stepping up from the S7 will blah, 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 blah. You get the point. But the point is that, to put it this way, I think that stepping from this to the Note 5 is a bigger jump than stepping from the Note 3 to the Note 4, if that makes sense. But that difference is still very minimal. And, you know, the camera on here is probably going to be just fine for whatever you need to do, especially since you have that optical stabilization, which helps out a lot in many different situations. And, of course, the front-facing camera is there, and it probably sucks. I never use the front-facing camera anyway, so I pretty much don't care. But if you do, if you like taking selfies with the front-facing camera, then that's going to be dramatically improved on the newer devices because they focus more on the front-facing camera, which I don't understand because everyone just takes selfies in their mirror anyway, but I'm not complaining. Yes, I am. So we have the lock button and the volume rocker. Now, interesting note, just like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Note 2, volume rocker is a rocker. It's not a separate set of buttons. Same thing on this ZTE phone, whereas if we look on the iPhone, they are separate buttons. Also, looking at the Note 7, separate buttons. Now, which do I prefer? I prefer separate buttons. I don't like having this volume rocker, where it's like, you know, it's not as clicky as the power button. The buttons on here are very clicky, but they're not as good as the Note 5. They're very close though, you know. But the volume rocker is the biggest thing. If you prefer having it be a rocker like this, you'll be fine. If you like it being more so buttons, then you're not going to like this as much. If you don't care, or you're going to put a case on anyways, then whatever. So you also have the heart rate sensor, just like on the Note 5. I actually like the placement of it better than on the Note 5. It looks more symmetrical. It looks nice. I wish they had gone back to that on the Note 7, because on the Note 7, they constantly talked about how, oh, it's a symmetrical design. Everything is so beautiful because the curves on the back and the front, so it's so symmetrical. But like, what is this? Why didn't you do this? Then it'd be symmetrical. It's like this way, it'd be symmetrical. But they didn't do that. So I like this. I think this looks nicer. And you can reach this a little bit easier. Of course, now, kind of reminds me of the Note 9 now, how the fingerprint sensor's right there and the camera module's up there. So that's kind of interesting. But you do have the heart rate sensor with Samsung Health, which is pretty much the same as it is on the Note 5. It's very nice. I love it on the Note 5, and I love it here. Let's try to get a heart rate reading. So that is one thing that's nice. Of course, it's asking me to stay still and quiet. I am not such, so this might fail. But we'll see if this will actually measure my heart rate. I doubt it. It'll probably fail out. But it's very nice how it has that. So that is one thing that you're not missing going to this instead of the Note 5. And I am comparing this a lot to the Note 5 because it seems like the Note 4 and the Note 5 were the pinnacle of like debate as far as Galaxy Note fans. Because the Note 4 was the last of the classic design, and the Note 5 was the first of the newer design. And sort of the philosophy changed a lot within the Note series, going from the Note 4 to the Note 5. Which will make a lot of people wonder nowadays, you know, is it worth stepping down to the Note 4? Or some people won't even consider the Note 5. But as far as this feature, this is something you do get on the Note 4. It does seem to work better on the Note 5, but the difference is very minimal. So you're not really going to notice that well. And as you can see, it failed because I wasn't doing it right. So the sensor is actually right here. That's the flash. So I should be putting it more towards the left from the front. And then that should measure it more. And I can feel it vibrating now. But yeah. Also, battery life. Battery life is actually pretty good on this. The battery that I initially got, it was having problems where it was dying at like 20-something%. But after using it for about a week and charging it up and just using it on Wi-Fi, it actually solved the battery. So it never died on me after that. It was at 11-10%. And I just put it back on the charger and did the fast charging all the way up to the current 85%. And now it's gone down to 83%. So yeah, fast charging as well. You don't need to go to the Note 5 to get fast charging. You do still have fast charging. And the best part is you don't have to worry about it damaging your battery because you can just swap it out super easily. Now, one thing you miss out on is wireless charging. Now, you can add a wireless charging back to this, but it's not fast wireless charging like the newer Note 5. So you can add wireless charging for a couple bucks, but it will bulge the back out a little bit, and it'll charge fairly slow. But if you don't care about that and you just care about cable charging, then you're set with the Note 4. Also, you also have the fact that there is no there's no USB Type C. Well, there's definitely no USB Type C, but there's also no USB 3 like on the Note 3. So you have USB 2.0. That's the same as on the Note 5 and the S6 Edge Plus. But it's just something to mention if you're coming from the Note 3 or from the Note 7 or 8, you're not gonna, you're gonna miss that because USB Type-C is so much better than micro USB. But at the same time, you also have cables that are much easier to find, and you don't have to worry as much about, stuff like that. Also, you have the speaker, which is the same as the Note Edge. It's kind of bad. It's okay. It gets the job done. It's not ideal. You have some microphones, so recording audio is fairly nice on this. And a lot of stuff on this phone hasn't really changed much in the few years it's been out on the market. But as far as software goes, it's running Android 6.0.1 Marshmallow, at least when you have it fully updated, which is, it's good. It gets the job done. It is up to date enough. I don't have any problems with app compatibility. The newest Android security patch you're going to get natively is August 1st, 2017, so it is behind in updates. So if you're worried about security updates, that is something to be warned, although even my Note 5 doesn't have security updates. Obviously, the Note 7 hasn't gotten security updates for a very long time. So at this point, if you want security updates, you're going to have to get the Note 8 and that's not going to last for that much longer. So, of course, Note 9. Samsung still sucks at supporting their older devices, and unfortunately with the Note 5, they did not change that. So, you're going to be on older software. It's going to run a bit slower because of TouchWiz, but at the same time, it works. All your apps are going to work just fine on it. I haven't found anything yet that is incompatible with this, at least that I haven't tried. You can tell I still have apps that I haven't downloaded yet. But as far as ones that you are using, it's going to be fine. And I know, obviously the software is the most important thing, because that's as far as what people are going to be worrying about when using an old phone in the new age, I guess. You know, the bezel-less era, there's no bezels, there's no bezel-less on this. The bezels are fairly thick, but most people don't care, let's be honest. You know, you have, you know, a bezel-less display like this, where you have, it goes all the way to the corners, but people still don't say it's bezel-less because you have the top bezels, you know, and of course with iPhones, you have thick bezels, you know, except the iPhone 10. You have other devices with even thicker bezels, just bezels, bezels, bezels. This phone is bezels. I don't care. I really don't. If you care, then you probably haven't even clicked on this video. Most people don't care about the stupid bezel race, but at the same time, it's something to mention. It makes this phone more durable, but at the same time, you know, it'll feel bigger in your hands than the Note 5 or the Note 7, and to a lesser extent the Note 8, because the Note 8 is a bit taller. As far as like any iPhone 6 all the way to the 8 Plus is, you know, gonna feel about the same in terms of size to this. You don't have to worry about the glass back. You don't have to worry about it bending. You don't have to worry about anything like that. There is a gap on the front of the screen. Some people have mentioned that. It's called gap gate, but it's not really, you know, it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. I think Samsung mainly put that there so that way when you drop it, if the aluminum bends in just a little bit from an impact, that it won't put so much pressure that it cracks the screen. At least that's my understanding as to why Samsung did it, and in that case, it's a great design. But as far as just, you know, in general, as far as just the handling of this phone, it feels great, and you know, you're not really gonna worry about it too much. You know, it's one of those things where you're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. It's an acquired taste. It's definitely a lot better than the Note 2, and definitely a lot better than, you know, cheaper budget phones out there, even ones that do have removable backs that are textured, because this is just superior in every way. But of course, you're not going to get the same wow factor that you get with any newer Galaxy phone, so don't expect that. But at the same time, if you're shopping for an older Note, you probably shouldn't have that mindset in the first place. So the Note 4 is overall, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I missed. You also have the IR blaster, which is fantastic. The IR blaster is the greatest thing as far as features that have been removed on Samsung devices. Huawei, I believe it's Huawei, still has these on their devices, and Samsung has abandoned them for quite a while. Note 4 was the last Note to have an IR blaster. For some reason, Samsung, they kept it on the S6, but then didn't add it to the Note 5 and the S6 Edge Plus. Why? I don't know. Samsung, IR blaster, please bring it back. It was so handy. Whenever I was using this, you know, it felt so cool to just have, you know, the IR blaster and still be using it to change channels and stuff. But at the same time, if you think about it, you're essentially, with the newer Galaxy phones, you're basically exchanging an IR blaster for fully fledged payment-based NFC. So Samsung Pay. If you want to use Samsung Pay, do not buy the Note 4. Plain and simple. If you really want to use Samsung Pay, then Note 5 or newer only. S6 or newer only. Don't even bother if you really want Samsung Pay, because this doesn't support it. This does not support Samsung Pay. It has NFC. I mean, this has NFC. All these have NFC. However, the NFC does not support Samsung Pay. So that is a bummer for me. I'm not using it as my daily driver anyway, but if I was, I would be very disappointed about that, because I've gotten used to using Samsung Pay on my Note 5, and it is fantastic. Seriously, the first time I used it, I felt like a wizard. It was fantastic. And, you know, it's just one of those things that you're going to miss on the Note 4, and you will have to step up to something newer if you want. I mean, I'm using the Note 7 as an example, but I think they disabled Samsung Pay on the Note 7. I'm not sure. But the Note 4 doesn't have that. So basically, in terms of older devices, you're basically deciding, do you want an IR blaster or do you want Samsung Pay? unless you're going to the Note 2, in which case you get neither. But Note 2 is, you know, I'm going to redo my video on the Note 2 to see how well it holds up. It still holds up well, but as far as actually buying it, I don't know. I'll discuss that in that video. But for the Note 4, you can still have a discussion because this does still hold up fairly well. And of course, you know, the build is very nice. It's the last build that has the popular removable back that, you know, yeah. So anyway, guys, I think that's basically it. I think I pretty much covered everything about this device. Anyway, guys, this is Intelitech Studios, and this is my quick review, it's hardly quick, of the Galaxy Note 4, and I will see you guys in the next video, my review of the Note 3, and more videos on the PowerForce Helix. Anyway, guys, Intelitech Studios, signing out. If I missed anything, then I'll comment in the comments below. I will see you guys in the next video. And also, Note 4, you know, if you got a Note 4, someone has an iPhone 5S, someone has a Galaxy Note 7, someone has a Note 2, someone has a ZTE. Where do you fit on the phone food chain, if I want to rip off Flossie Carter for a minute? Well, obviously, you don't have the newer design, but you have the Core Classic. This is the phone where you can show off to your friends who got the newer Galaxies or iPhones and be like, hey, I can swap out my battery, I can add my storage. Mine is a business utility phone. None of these, you know, none of these super pretty, dainty little glass boxes. This is a rugged, tough phone that is about getting work done, doesn't care about any of the extra gimmicks, and just wants to get everything done. So basically, if you're that type of person, and you don't mind having a bit of an older phone, then the Note 4 is definitely a great option, even in 2018 going into 2019. You can get these for dirt cheap now, around, geez, 120, 150 bucks, 200 bucks at most, brand new. It is great, and I recommend it, the Note 4 in 2018. I prefer the Note 5, but the Note 4 is still a solid choice. Anyway, guys, again, I keep repeating myself, Intelitech Studios signing out, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.